Welcome back, or welcome if you just joined. We're going to start the second session for today. It's a continuation from what we did in the morning, of course, as I was trying to explain the logic, let's say, of the overall day, is that this second session sort of expands upon wider topics that have to do with cooperative living. It will not be necessarily all about, like in the morning, the presentation of specific examples or cases, although there will be specific examples and cases that will be, of course, discussed depending on who is presenting. It's not all going to be presented by people who are currently members of co-ops, but is a wider array of people that have either lived in co-ops previously or are starting new co-ops now or are studying co-ops as part of their research interests or study interests more widely. So we have a lineup of 6 presentations. In the order, we will have Lily von Geyer from St. Andrews University, Tom Green from Sea Salt and Brighton and Hove CLT, Celeste John Wood, formerly from the Edinburgh Student Housing Co-op, Anke Schwitwe from the University of Sussex and Brighton and Hove CLT, Abhishek Waggle next to me from the house, from the AGA, and
joined by Janet Spear.
Janet Spear, sorry, I didn't. It's the only name that I didn't have in time when I published the program. And then Paula Bandiak and Andrew Bale from the Marples and Roost Housing Cooperative. So I will leave the stage to the first presentation. Lily, you want to sit here?
Oh, I was going to stand.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Make the space. Perfect. So, good afternoon. Thank you. So I hope everyone had a good lunch break. I would like to gather all of your minds as a collective for my word cloud, if that's okay. So the title of my talk is Co-op Sweet Co-op, Play on Home Sweet Home. I'm looking at Edinburgh Student Housing Cooperative as a researcher. And I was wondering if you could all scan the QR code or go to the Menti website, type in the code, but probably QR code is the easiest. And if you could just type in up to 3 words that remind you of home. It could be a feeling, a part of your home you love the most, like a person. IT guys, get involved if you want. Anyone at the panel, just kind of getting kind of a more idea of this room, how we're all viewing home before I blab on for 15 minutes about my research. So I'll give you a few minutes to do that. There's already a few ideas up there for inspiration if you need it, but should have some background music, shouldn't I? Well, it's all some elevator music. So, excellent, 53 responses. Good job, guys. So yeah, the words that are bigger on the screen are ones that people have collectively said more often. So safe, safety, peace, comforting, comfort, cozy. That's kind of ideal because I'm going to be talking about homemaking, which is, in my head, the sort of way of making a building and its 4 walls a space where humans can live and feel a sense of belonging and stability. So thanks for helping me out with that theme. I see cooking and food there as well, which is interesting. Collective co-housing, intimacy. Yeah, lots of good words. And one thing that I found when I was researching Edinburgh Co-op is that a lot of words and thoughts to do with homemaking were often split into 2 different categories, so either social or spatial. So I'll move on to the slides. So this is a little visualization of what I found when I was studying at St. Andrews. I graduated in June, so no longer an academic, but I can still tell you what I got up to. So social, spatial at Edinburgh. So a lot of the same sort of themes that we just came up with in our word cloud. So intentional communities, sort of empowerment, the spatial things of like housing quality, design, renovations, and then some like interesting overlap between like sense of belonging, which kind of can be impacted by both sort of categories. And that kind of vibe. And also external factors, which I came across when I was sort of studying as well, like COVID-19 had a big impact of how people viewed homemaking, the housing crisis, and also heteronormality. So a bit about the research I did. I had 15 participants from the co-op, some current, some previous members. We did hour-long interviews, and we also had sort of like a photography sort of pooling session where everyone sent pictures of when they lived at the co-op or where they're currently living, if places that made them feel at home, or, kind of just to get an idea of like spatially how they were manifesting home. So that was the research. And then participant recruitment, I went to a few open days the co-op had. I went to like a fundraising rave, which was fun explaining to my supervisor. And I was like, yeah, can you pay for my bus fare to go to a rave? It's for my dis. And then also just snowball sampling, so people's flatmates getting involved. So yeah, but again, nice Venn diagram, so keep that in your mind. I'm quite proud of that little visual. Okay, so the first image that I collected here is of actually Celeste's living room. Sorry, I didn't mean to call you out, but yeah, at Edinburgh Co-op. So you can see a beautiful mural painted this angel, like in kind of some like nature background. The kind of the flatmates grouped around this table, which I think is such a good representation of how community is envisioned by a lot of students, like sort of that socializing, that intimacy. And then also what I love is the wee cat sat on the chair as well, like kind of showing how pets are such like an integral part of having a secure, stable place to live. And they've got this nice quote here about how they found a coffee table off the street. Everyone could crowd around together and be cozy, work on their uni work together. It made it a nicer space. The cat would bask in the sun, and it just became a safe place and a peaceful spot. So again, that's sort of incorporating the words of safety, coziness that we just came up with as a group, how even, it's just integral to kind of making a space a home. And I kind of picked out, again, some of like the key social spatial themes that kind of intersect here. So intentional community, the sense of belonging it brought, the interior design, and then like the sort of autonomy that it brings. So yeah, I just think it's a nice image that sort of capitalizes how intentional community is such like a backbone of cooperatives, at least from my outsider research perspective. Yeah, and then we have image number 2, which I think is quite sweet. Again, pets, they're an integral part of all the pictures I got from the co-op. And then we have some cooperative members here, and they're doing a big renovation. So that was one thing that came up a lot in my interviews with people, is that the carpets that were in the housing cooperative were the original ones. And I found out, to my surprise, that they have sell-by dates. Who knew? Apparently the glue in carpets goes toxic after like X amount of years. And I think this quote here kind of symbolizes that there was this big push that students, especially living in these cooperatives, kind of still had these traditional tenant-landlord dynamics in their head. So if something went wrong, and they think, well, it's not my job to fix it because I'm just living here. When in reality, like a cooperative is all based around, people coming together and fixing their space and like taking that ownership for it. So yeah, this is a quote from Floyd where he was saying that they're trying to build recognition towards being their own landlord, they're responsible for things, and they have a stake. So yeah, moving towards this culture, that if there's something that needs to be fixed, like there needs to be that collective attitude being like, we can do this together, the cooperative's here, so we can join together as a group and improve our housing conditions. So yeah, it's quite a nice image of that actually happening in this photo. And I think that they've just got a lottery grant as well as a cooperative to like replace all the carpets. So no more sneezing and sort of like dust-related illnesses that I heard a lot about. So yeah, I think that's a good image. And again, sort of bringing back that sense of autonomy in the sort of like spatial aspects of homemaking, that you can make changes, like it's up to you. Say if you're a private tenant, like I am currently, like if there's something wrong with my flat, if my landlord doesn't do anything about it, then I'm sort of screwed. I'm like, well, I can't like invest my time and energy into a property that like, I don't have like a stake or autonomy over. So I think it's just like a really special part of the cooperative, is that you do have this sense of like ownership and autonomy that like, if there's something you want to change, you can do it. And that's like a really awesome thing. Yeah, and moving on to my final slide. This is sort of a picture that symbolized that intentional community for one of the participants. So this is, you can sort of see the basement space where it interjects into like the outside area, big bike shed, someone sat on top of it. Not sure how they got up there, didn't want to ask. And then the sort of big group communicating. Yeah, and there's this quote from Jeremy here that I think is quite powerful, is that his parents moved away from his childhood home, his father passed away when he was living at the co-op, he's gone through breakups, and just the fact that he had this intentional community there, he found it grounding. Like, despite all this change he was experiencing in his personal life, he could still feel stability and security knowing that he still had his cooperative home. So I think that, again, just sort of shows how living in a cooperative can be quite life-changing for young people, especially with the whole housing crisis and the instability of renting and like landlords selling property and just like being like, homeless and having somewhere to stay. Like the fact that a cooperative can provide that security for people during such like a tumultuous time of like growing up and like figuring out who you are as a person, like I think it's quite powerful. But then we also have this quote here, which shows like another side of the intentional community about how there's a pressure to have a flat family. So again, like I think from the outside, especially as a researcher viewing cooperatives, I was like, well, they sound great. Like there should be no problems. Like, everyone's just living together and like painting their rooms and it sounds great. But then when I did my research, I found out more that actually there are issues like informal hierarchies that form despite it trying to be like a flat power dynamic. There's still people who've lived there longer or have like maybe a stronger voice or are more confident that can have their opinions like, prioritized, when in reality that's like not what the aim is. And then again, these sort of pressures to almost conform to like a cooperative identity. That's kind of what I gathered, is like there's sort of these ideologies like, oh, everyone should have dinner together every night, and we should have like open doors all the time and like sort of merge into one like hive mind, when in reality like privacy and having your own sort of space is a vital part of like being a functioning human being. So I think that was an interesting part that came up of like there's all these ideologies of what a cooperative could and like is kind of, you know, envisioned as being, but the realities of that and sort of coping mentally in a space where it's like quite intense collectiveness, that it can be difficult. So obviously I think co-ops are a good thing, but there's sort of like underlying factors that can make it a bit more difficult to function in. So closing thoughts, just kind of recap the little photos there. I just want to say thanks to everyone I interviewed as part of like my dissertation. Like, it was a really awesome experience to go in as like an outsider I never even really heard of cooperatives until like I dug deeper into like affordable housing, like through my own sort of activism that I do, and found out about them as like an alternative. So it was awesome to go in and just experience and be accommodated and learn about this different like lifestyle. So yeah, I think it's like just nice to have an event like this where everyone can get together and share their experiences and hopefully, encourage more cooperative housing to, become a part of society. So yeah, that's all from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Lily.